This was once a stark contrast to the forest stand that you see now. It used to be so thick with multi-aged and a diverse species of oaks, which are the tree species that are all primarily here now. Oaks. This is an interior live oak, as well as an intermix of pines, both ponderosa and gray pines. But the landowner came in and did a large clearing project in the name of fire safety, which was definitely accomplished in one way. But in doing this clearing job, this once dense and diverse stand of oaks was converted to a monoculture of singular age, singular species, primarily interior live oak and blue oaks. There are an intermix of Oregon white oaks as well. However, all of the pine species were removed, and many rotations of future firewood harvesting were removed all at once, leaving the pile of firewood that was cut and removed, not this pile here, but one down at the far edge of the property, way down there, stacked and unfortunately rotting. Whereas if that was retained for future harvesting, there could have been many rotations of probably close to 100 years or more of firewood resource harvesting, as well as removing so much of that wood and diversity. A lot of habitat was lost as well. So there have been a huge reduction in the number of birds and bats and upland game species that now reside in this place. I'm not in the forest today, but we can use my home. Since I'm a forester, I do have forest species of trees and a few that we can use as identifying specimens to determine what kind of tree these are. So right here we have this bright green, bushy conifer. It's a cone bearing, so it's a conifer tree that has these somewhat of palmate needles. Palmate meaning shaped like the palm of a hand, facing out. And it doesn't have leaves, but it has needles. And this particular tree species is a western incense cedar. And this is one of the healthier ones right here. Western incense cedars grow in the wet western slopes of the Sierra Nevada and all through the Pacific Northwest. Here's another incense cedar, not as healthy, but didn't get as much water. So it's kind of struggling, but doing all right. In addition to these incense cedars, we also have this little fledgling California redwood, actually. And it's really similar to the cedar, being that it's got the palmate needle structures instead of leaves. And you can see these itty bitty, tiny little needles jutting out from the stems. Now, both of those species love water. In fact, this redwood loves water in the form of fog and mist and water from the underneath side, like a relative humidity, to source its water through the needles. Actually, redwoods have very shallow roots, and that is because they don't uptake a lot of water from below the surface. They take the water up from this dense structure of multiple needles. Cedars, however, do take up a lot of water from below the surface and less from their needles. And so they live where there is well-drained soil with ready access to water at the roots. Now here next to the redwood, we have this little conifer evergreen tree with these tufts or bunches of needles, almost kind of like a foxtail. And sometimes these foxtail bunches of needles are so big and puffy, it looks like an even bigger fox. And those are pines. Those are pine trees of all different sorts. This one in particular is a pine tree where the needle clusters right here grow in these little groupings of 5 needles. And they're short and bunchy, 5 needles. So we can start to determine that that is a sugar pine. Pinus lambertiana. Grows in the mid-elevation mountainous regions of the western slope of the Sierra Nevada throughout California. There are close to 500 different species of oaks throughout the world, and something like almost 200 or more than 200 oak species in the state of California. Right in the frame that you can see, there are 3 and actually 4 distinct species of oaks. We have white oaks, also known as Oregon white oaks. This is an interior live oak. Actually, I think, yeah. This has the variegated or jagged leaves that you can just start to make out. The little pokes at the edges of the leaves. Interior live oak. Let's see, here's a good example right here. And right behind it, actually, and then up above it, you can start to see the different leaf structure of the blue oak. The blue oak leaves actually give out, right now it's a whitish color as it's starting to turn its colors to yellow for fall. But in the spring, when the leaf is emerging, the blue oak actually has somewhat of a blue tone or a blue hue coloring to it. So you've got an interior live oak and a blue oak right next to each other. The structure of the striations within the trunk wood is also different. It's a lot tighter, if you can see that, within the blue oak. The striations of the blue oak wood structure is tighter, whereas the striations in the live oak is wider and a little bit more spread out. We can use the trunk structure, the leaf structure, and the appearance of the various acorns to determine what kind of species we are either looking at or working in. We're back here at the prescribed fire and prescribed burn unit here in Placer County, early October 2025. and we're talking about tree identification and early concepts of prescribed fire effects. So why do we care again about tree species? Why does it matter what kind of tree it is that we're either standing around or working with, or maybe living with? It's important to know what kind of tree species are around us in forestry, because we can start to tell what kind of water needs to be in the system, what kind of sunlight needs to be in the system. Sometimes these trees grow and they're completely shaded out, but it might be a shade intolerant species like pines. And when the pines are shaded out, they become suppressed and not viable, and they don't become those big healthy pines that are known for good quality timber. I'm sitting in front of, maybe you've already guessed it based on the striated, strandy bark that's reddish in color. It's not a redwood, but it's similar. It's a cedar. That's right, a western incense cedar. And the incense cedar is very typical tree species at this elevation in the western Sierra Nevada, all through the Sierra Nevada range, in fact. And so now what I want you to do is take some of these tools that you've learned about species identification, why it matters, and you're going to go use the Urban Tree Key that Cal Poly put out for a tree identification tool. It's an online application on the web. It is not an app, but you can find it online. In fact, you can just Google Cal Poly Urban Tree Key, and there are almost 20,000 different species in that database that you can whittle down your search engine to determine the tree species of your selected tree. You can also sometimes use good old-fashioned AI. I know that on the up-to-date Apple phones or iPhones, my kids would laugh at me that I called it Apple phone. Anyways, on the iPhone updated software, you can take a picture and wait a second, and as long as you have connectivity to either cellular or Wi-Fi, there may be a little leaf and AI symbol that comes up, and if you tap on that, the phones can actually help determine the species of a tree. Just a little bit ago, over in the corner of the burn unit, we had noticed a special deciduous tree yesterday, and we were trying to figure out what it was. Well, today I took a picture of it, and I tapped on it, and I tapped on the AI feature and figured out it was an Atlantic pistache. Pistache trees are really pretty, especially in the fall. So enjoy identifying your tree species and take good care of those trees, because they give us a lot of benefits, including shade, oxygen, and a sense of connection to nature.